Thank you for tuning into the Taking Shape podcast, a podcast focused on documenting the story of SA's surfboard shaping history and the hands that built it. Today, we're sitting down with Jbay shaping legend, Des Sawyer, where we get to hear about how Des started shaping, what it was like shaping over 1,000 boards in a year, and what it really means to be a surfer. I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Well, good morning, Des. How you doing?
Morning. Good, thanks. Good. Fossilizing, but good.
Fossilizing, but good. It's a beautiful morning here in Jbay.
Yeah.
Your beautiful home. I'm really excited to chat to you and hear a bit about your story.
Great.
Today. So
Okay.
we'll jump right into it.
Yeah.
So first question, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I thought I would be something else, but I've discovered that I'm a surfboard builder, and that's good enough for me. I thought that I'd be, in the Western idea, more ambitious, but that didn't work. I don't think that's a great idea. Just be who you are. So I'm a surfboard builder, which has been a wonderful life, and been building boards in Jeffreys for 30-something years. Before that in Cape Town. So I started in about 67, 68 as a kid, 14, 15. So this year I'll be 70. And had the privilege of moving around the planet, made some good friends, did a number of boards in a number of places. Yeah. So who I am, Christian firstly,
Cool.
believer, Jesus, and I surfed and I built surfboards.
Very cool. That's a good introduction.
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair
you know?
enough, yeah.
Yeah.
And tell me, in the morning when you wake up, how do you drink your coffee?
Strong and with 3 fingers of milk. If you want to measure tea and coffee milk, do your fingers. That's common sense to me. So it's 3 fingers of milk, nice strong coffee. We've got a good coffee sponsor through Stephen.
Who's that?
I don't even know what it's called now. I better
I think
have
it's
a
Tribe.
look. Yeah, Tribe, yeah.
Yeah, I was shaking the guys in Cape Town.
Yeah, very good. It's really a brilliant coffee.
I worked in the coffee industry for a long time,
Okay.
growing up from the age of 14 to like 19. So I know Jake and the guys from Tribe very well.
So join the mafia, deal in coffee, because it's going to get controlled globally, I believe. That's why it's getting so expensive.
Yeah, I think it already is. A lot of
Like
the countries
everything.
are.
Pretty much like everything. Our idea is to monopolize. And I think the fault of many surfboard shapers, as well as other business people, all the same, is to try and build all the boards in the world, or all the boards in Jbay, or all the board, And it's we're not in the Olympics of life.
Yeah.
The Olympics are great, and I just learned actually day before yesterday about the idea of where trophies come from. The word trophy originally came from when in the old days with spears and shields, etc., when people in Bible times, I think, when they overcame an enemy, the enemy dropped everything and ran away.
Yeah.
And what they dropped was termed a trophy.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now I've got a world trophy here around the corner. Stephen's got his world trophy and many other trophies. They actually just get in the way.
Yeah.
So why did I get there? Just because.
I'm talking about the monopoly of the coffee industry.
So the monopoly of everything, you're trying to get every trophy, and so we're in the Olympics of life here because we're Western mindset, which we should reconsider.
Yeah.
So surfing, obviously I've learned whatever I've learned through surfing, building surfboards, dealing with surfers. I don't, deal with all these other chaps, but what I've learned is we're very competitive, we're very performance orientated, and the reason that we perform so much is because that's where we get our value from, because it's the wrong place. We don't believe in the Lord, we don't believe in we have no God, so we want to be God, kind of a very basic idea, I think.
Yeah, that's true. As the world goes more further away from God, they need to find their own God, their own source of affirmation and stuff.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with surfboard building is the cream of the surfboard builders has a lot of Christian guys building boards.
Yeah.
You know, Eric Arakawa and Takora and Nev and a lot of different other guys that have believed the same thing.
Yeah, guys like Skip Fry.
Skip as well. A lot of guys, yeah.
It's been very interesting as I've done more research into like shaping history and stuff. You see a lot of guys who are like born again believers, love the Lord.
That's
They
right.
put him first. Then work Sundays, go to church.
Yeah. Kuka Pinto.
Yeah, Corey Calapinto.
Very cool. Lovely surfer. I'd like to meet him. I wanted to go back to the States because Stephen spends a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Our son Stephen. So he surfs for the contests and stuff. And I'd like to meet all these guys, you know. Some of them have come here and some of them are coming. I've met a few. Very cool. The longboarding vibe is very cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's always very inspiring as a believer to see a pro surfer who's very outspoken about his faith and doesn't fold on things. He's just like, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. You don't like the stuff I post or the things I say, unfollow me or don't listen to me. It's very inspiring.
Well, the thing that amazes me is if you know, people say, oh, you know, you're preaching and you're talking this about God and all this stuff. Well, why don't they think about what they talk about? Is it so important to talk about cookies and boobs and money and, you know, like, hey, you know, come on, you know, and there's life after surfing. So, you know, there's only life after surfing if surfing's not God, you know.
Yeah.
But I think people don't know what they worship, and it's a temptation for all of us. We could worship surfing or the works of our hands, you know, we can worship, you know, being creative, and all I think of is surfing or surfboard designs, which is obviously a lot of what my mind has been filled of. But I think we need to think about what we think about and then prioritize our thoughts, because that makes your mind, that's the mind that you have. Your mind's not just your thoughts only, because thoughts are what comes in and out of you. It's what you let in.
Yeah.
So that's the funny thing about surfing, is some people surf, but they don't let surfing in. So they surf for 20 years and they surf the same as they did in the first year. They just do 1 year 20 times.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's got all this experience. Same as surfboard builders. A lot of surfboard builders today are not that authentic. And I feel they're unauthorized because they just have technology, you know. And so the art and skill, they've left that out. And the meaning of naive is to be unskilled. So in a sense, I'd have to say, without being judgmental, according to language, they're naive.
Yeah.
So if all you can do is scrub your boards, then you're not a shaper as such. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, it's it is very easy to look at guys now. Just download a thing off Shape 3D's catalog and put that sticker on their board.
Well, just get a board from someone that makes a nice board and copy it. Make, you know, do a few generations on a machine and get it close, you see.
Yeah.
And then put your name on that. That to me is just lacking. It's lacking essence. It's an echo. It's not a voice.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a voice than an echo. You know what I'm saying?
It was quite a humbling experience in lockdown when my dad and I bought our first blank. He watched a bunch of videos on YouTube and bought a second-hand planer from Cash Crusaders. We're like, we're going to shape a surfboard and it's going to be sick. And then started doing it and realizing we had no clue what we were doing. And then chatting to guys who've been shaping for like 40 years or 50 years and saying, we started when we were little kids and we've swept factory floors and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And it's like a very humbling experience when you try for the first time.
Yeah. And like everything and anything, there's a pattern and a way, which is a pattern. There's a way. So, you know, like I said to my son when he wanted to do all this, I explained surfing and surfboard building and a whole lot of other things just with one sort of metaphor. If you can write music and you can play music, even if you're tone deaf, then if you learn patterns and if you learn systems without that much talent, you can still do it. And so that's a humbling thing, because you'll find some guy might play lead guitar, but he's tone deaf, can't whistle or dance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you've got to make space for those people, because I think that's the way life works. It's not just that you can stand egotistically on having a talent, because that's a given. Someone gave that to you.
Yeah.
So, we don't brag about talent, but I think you can consider hard work.
Yeah.
And so those are also things that just have put value into what I think we're doing here. Because when I think about a surfboard, the value I have on a surfboard is different to the value that someone else has on a surfboard. Because having to build a surfboard, you sort of bleed and die to learn.
Yeah.
It took me so long to learn, because that's just the way that it had to go. There was no instruction from anywhere. There was no tutorials and stuff. And in any event, I don't think there's a surfboard degree or technical thing you can do. So it still has that part of a value.
Yeah.
But without getting old and grumpy, I think that a lot of the value of being able to shape has gone out the door because of the computer. Because a lot of guys that are shaping today, that tried to shape yesterday and couldn't, now they can shape.
Yeah. And
that's not being unkind. It's just a case of the value. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's a weird situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're almost getting the products without having to learn how to use the tools, how to look at it properly, how to...
Yeah, it's kind of like putting something in the microwave. It's instant Jamie recipe, and then you claim it. You give it to people for supper, and they say, well done, and you say thank you, but it's not. It's very similar. I think it's very similar to that.
Well, on that, how did you start shaping?
I started shaping because my dad bought me a board, and
How old were you?
I was 14. Cut the fin down. It was an O'Donnell surfboard, Brian O'Donnell, Cape Town, and I cut the fin down to side slip, because that was what we used to try. And that was the beginning of, we couldn't surf, and not many people could really surf. You just stand and go. Anyway, we started side slipping, cut the fin, and my dad said, okay, no more boards for you. Told my friends, a friend of mine stole someone's lovely 10-foot new surfboard.
No way.
And we took all the glass off it, and I shaped my first board. And
No
funnily
ways.
enough, the guy that I'm very close to in shaping, who lives in Hawaii, a guy called Eric Arakawa, who's a friend, he did the same thing he did when he was a kid. They stole the board, and he shaped his first board. So that's not a great thing to do, but that's where we were living. We were young, naive, dumb, whatever.
What area of Cape Town?
Sea Point.
Sea Point, okay.
Bad surf. Horrible surf. When you're from Sea Point, you say how great the waves are, but come on.
No, I lived in Cape Town for 18 years, and I didn't surf once.
Terrible waves. We enjoyed it, but it was terrible.
Just to know that there's better stuff around the peninsula.
Yeah, much better, yeah.
And how did you go from being a 14-year-old stealing 10-foot longboards to where you are now?
Yeah, well, that's a life story, So, when I looked at a surfboard, I kind of looked in a mirror. I saw myself, thought, wow, this is for me. I thought of doing other things, as I've gone along. Like I say, you get ambitious as you're growing. You grow through things, hopefully. And I thought I would do other things. So I did interiors, I did boat building, I did a couple of things. But I realized that wasn't my tribe. That's not my groove. That's not my space, And I think one of the things I had to do was I had to realize I was trying to climb a ladder, and that surfboard building was a low rung.
Yeah. And
I don't know. I just don't think ladders are. We don't walk around on ladders. You know what I mean? So we're on flat earth, and so whether you are this or that, there is a quality that will make an expert, and that's a lot of ingredients to make an expert. And so one of the things you have to be is humble and teachable. So that took me a long time and many things to go through that. So I built boats for guys, and that humbled me, you know, because I realized I'm not that clever. These dudes are going to rip me off, and so
Yeah, boat builders
yeah,
are
so
they're smart guys. They know what
they
they're doing.
didn't. It just wasn't my place.
Mm.
So I got out of there, you know, and I came to Jeffries. But yeah, there's too much to say about how I got to build boards. But that's the essence of it. That I thought it wasn't good enough. I tried a few things, realized, hey, I'm actually a surfer, and that's the way I want to live.
Yeah.
And so what I learned was more important than what I do is how I'm going to live. And I wanted to live a modest, quiet lifestyle. Didn't want a Porsche and a nice house and flash and
Yeah.
Clifton and
Double story.
didn't need all
mansion
that,
vibe.
you see. And we grew up around that kind of stuff. You know, our neighbors had these fancy cars, and
Yeah.
I had friends whose families had a lot of money, and I just realized that although it was appealing to me, I realized after a while that wasn't really as valuable as I thought it was. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I say you grow through things. So I realized, hey, hang on a second, it's, you know. So basically, surfing and surfboard building brought me into a sober-minded place because I was drunk on competitiveness, comparing, performing, achieving. Uh, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and
Trying to climb
and
that
that
ladder.
doesn't mean to say that you don't want to make a good name for yourself. You know, the Bible teaches that you should have a good name.
Yeah.
It says it's better than silver.
Yeah.
You know, to have a good name is different to that. So I've wanted to try and have a decent name, but it takes a lot because you've got to be reliable, you've got to be faithful, you've got to be honest, you've got to be available, you've got to be skilled, you've got to have resource. So all of those things kind of they've made. But you know, when you get to now where I am, you got a long way to look back, and so you can sort of graph things. You kind of you can map them out.
Yeah.
So while you're living, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And even with surfboards, even now, sometimes I still don't know what I'm doing because I'm trying to make Stephen boards, these classic logs. And just when I got the high performance boards pretty there, and he won on that, the world title, he changed to the logs, and then I didn't know what logs were. So I shaped outline logs with hot dog rails, you know.
Wow.
But anyway, because we hadn't seen the logs here, you know, a few years ago, there weren't, like in America or Oz or wherever, there's a whole lot of boards around you. The crazy thing about building surfboards in South Africa has been, and still is to a degree, we don't see a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So when the pros come to the shortboard contest, I can obviously see their boards, but I hadn't seen many logs until Stephen traveled and brought some back, you know. So I told him, write everybody's boards wherever you go, because I don't make the one and only.
Yeah.
We're not the one and only. And then let's see from there, you know.
And then what was the shaping or the surfing industry like 20 or 30 years ago in Jbay? Because obviously Jbay is one of the best waves in the world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shapers here, a lot of like really good
Yeah,
shapers.
well, the 80s, I didn't think the boards were so great. Guys surfed well, but if you look at the 80s surfing now videos, you laugh, you know, because the girls surfed better than the guys did. I think the boards have improved incredibly. It's unbelievable to think that you can make a 9'2" Mel, not log Mel, that goes better than a 7-foot single fin used to go.
Yeah.
Faster, looser, you know, you could just. So the boards 30 years ago weren't so great. We thought they were, but that's
all you knew.
what progression does. You know, you have to believe in what you do. And that's part of what we do, I guess. We say, hey, this is it, but nothing's it.
Yeah.
But in any event, so 30 years ago, I didn't think the boards were so great, and the surfing wasn't so great, incomparable to today. But that's the mystery of progression, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I sit here and I think, like, I can't believe that you can make these boards that go so well, because it's like the motor cars today. You've got fuel injection, disc brakes, you've got whatever else. We seem to have just learned, how to build surfboards now.
Yeah.
And we've learned to surf. So the nice thing about when I started, no one could surf.
Sorry. Mic. If you tap it
Sorry.
you pick it up.
No one could surf
Yeah.
that well, and no one could build decent boards, because and we're sheep, so we all built the same stuff.
Yeah.
So it's today as well. We kind of, when you look at car design, clothes design, anything that we design, most of us are sheeping.
And what's it been like? So obviously, or shaping when you had these old classic longboards that the guys were surfing back in there, and now Stevie's bringing this wave of like classic longboards again in 2023. Is it interesting seeing like these old shapes kind of come back to 2023, or you kind of look at like, why are we going backwards, or is it more refined than it was?
I've got old boards here, collector's pieces, which are incredible. People have been kind and brought me boards from the 60s, maybe even the 50s. I've got I've got a Sun Surf and a Whitmore, of course, and a Barber and a Gremlin, and the Sun Surf super old board, and they don't go.
Oh, really?
No, they don't go. So we make look, I know some of the boards, Joel, and I know Stephen's ridden some of the older boards, the Whitmores and stuff, and they're okay. The logs that we make today are probably the closest boards to the old classic boards that are made, yeah. But
are you saying the boards you guys shape?
Around the world. But some people are riding the old classics. They'll take an old board from the 60s, but maybe they'll disagree. I found them very difficult to ride in the old days, and I'm trying to make, the philosophy that I have about a board is it should be easy to ride. It shouldn't react, it should respond. Great difference.
Okay.
If a person reacts, it's negative. If they respond, it's positive. Same as a board. It's the best way I can explain a board. Don't want a board to have a lot of character of its own. I want it to respond, which means whatever you do, the board can go through with you.
Interesting.
So that's what we try and build in all our boards. Obviously, your boards have features,
Yeah.
and they have design and they have whatever. But I mean, you can imagine, trying to play a guitar that reacts to you, trying to drive a car, trying to drive a car. So in a sense, I think that, we've always tried that, and that's what I don't know to do sometimes. I'm trying to work on making boards easy to ride, but that still hold lines and stuff. So in a sense, the classic logs now are retarded for what we were surfing before with the high performance. Definitely.
Okay.
They're not progressive.
No, not
they're
at all.
Classic.
Yeah.
You see. And so there's a different class of surfing.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way I can put it. The class of surfing. And so instead of doing like wild cutbacks and off the tops, you kind of have a different idea. So it's very interesting for me to go and shape, those boards.
Yeah.
I'm finding it difficult though.
Really?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I didn't find it easy to shape boards in any event, but at least I had rehearsed the board, I had practiced, and I thought I knew what I was doing. Whereas with the boards that Stephen and I are working on now, we've got some good ones.
Yeah.
Obviously we've hit some marks. But I don't feel I have enough pages in the dictionary,
That is so intimidating to hear. As someone who's like starting to shape and like learning how to use a planer and how do rail bands work and rocker and all these kind of things. And I'm like starting to feel like I've almost nearly touched the surface of almost knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
hearing,
well,
so
that's
very,
fair. I
it's very
mean,
cool to
you
hear.
know that. Yeah, you know, um, yeah, expertise is ridiculous, isn't it? Because it's a lot of discipline, and a lot of art. So it's a lot of technical and a lot of artistic, a lot of creativity, but a lot of also, stationary ideas where if you wanted to change something, you must know what you have in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's technical. So I have a whole lot of tools and a whole lot of things that help me know exactly where I'm coming from so that I can go somewhere.
Yeah.
So I have these they're sort of standard curves that I have, which I got from a guy that I shaped with from Hawaii, a guy called Glenn Manami. But I've had a few basic curves, especially the shortboard curves and my classic retro boards. I've had those curves for like 30 years.
And
They're not a finished curve; they're a standardized curve. So they an average or mean curve, and then I have more or less tail rocker, nose rocker, drop in the middle, whatever it is. So you can measure something with a straight line, but you can also measure something with a curved line.
Yeah.
So because we're measuring curves, we'll use a curve because it's closer.
Yeah.
So when you have a straight line and you measure 3 inches in the tail and 4.5 in the nose, you can do that. But if you have a curve, you can see a very, very direct link up to the curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've seen guys shape and they use those curve templates. And they're very interesting
Bottom
to see.
curves, yeah. Not just the outline. I'm talking about,
the
rockers
bottom
and bottoms and stuff. And then, but, surfing, like everything else, it's going to have progression.
Yeah.
We just don't know where. I mean, I remember 30 years ago, working in one of the factories downtown with all the shapers, and we were sitting having tea and saying, where's surfing going? And no one had any idea of airs or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Martin Potter was very progressive on a twin fin, but we never thought of doing stuff, like they're doing now. So I don't know. Imagination is an incredible thing that we all have, and I don't know how it works because it works, but when you try and have imagination, you can't just turn it on. You know what I mean?
yeah. It'll hit you at 2 a.m. when you're trying to sleep. You think of this brand new idea.
Yeah, you can get into a good space and to facilitate a bit of it, and you can be with people. People synergize.
Yeah.
So synergy is an incredible thing because it's a dynamic that's inexplainable.
Yeah, you spark off each other.
Yeah, and like if you pick up 100 pounds and I pick up 100 pounds, together we won't pick up 200. We pick up more than 200.
Yeah.
That's progression. So that's what I'm saying is when you deal with people. But I think a lot of the guys that I've shaped with have really taught me the disciplines of shaping. We haven't spoken too much about all sorts of cosmic things. We've been more disciplined,
You mentioned you used to work in a factory downtown with a bunch of shapers. When was that?
I worked at Jbay Surf Designs, I think it was called, with Kenny Freeland and Glenn Darcy. Peter Daniels used to come. Errol Hickman used to come in there. We had a lot of different guys that traveled that used to come in. So it was a center of board building. Also, Larry Levine had a factory uptown, but he was more on his own. So I worked there as well. But I started with David Lipschitz owned the factory. I think he did. And so Das was there. And then it ended up Kenny left, and it was just Darcy and me. Yeah. Then Blue Hawaii came, and then Larry and a couple of guys tried it, but they didn't get it going. And then I got it eventually, and got all the disciplines in place and managed to copy the original boards quite closely. And then, yeah, that we got going.
And was that you guys shaping under Jbay Fin Design or Jbay Surf Design, or was that under your own label?
No, Jbay Surf Designs with that round Ella logo. I didn't get my boards on. I didn't get my name on boards for a long time in Jbay. Because when I shaped for Blue Hawaii, they didn't want me to put my name on the board. They put Glenn Manami's name. They put Manami Designs.
Oh, wow.
Then I said to the guys, "No, I want my name on the board," because I changed some of his designs with him, and after he worked with me, and I felt, look, hey, I should get my credits, because that was not his design anymore.
Yeah, it's your work as well.
Yeah, but then when I started my own label, obviously it was just Des Sawyer again, because I'd made Sawyer surfboards in Cape Town, right from the beginning, So it was interesting to work with shapers. I think the most intimidating thing was not working with one or two guys. When I went to Hawaii, was to go into a coffee bar that they had in the factory, and there was like 10 shapers there, and they were all like top dogs, all the main oaks, and they have coffee and donuts, and people say, where are you from and what are you doing? And it was very intimidating because I hadn't been anywhere, and I went to Hawaii. It's 92, I think, and all these dudes were there, shaping boards for all the money,
Yeah.
I'd shape for some guys, yeah, but not that many, and I was on the cusp of really getting into my groove as a shaper, although I'd started shaping years before that.
15 years before that?
Well, I knew for years that I wasn't where I wanted to be.
Okay.
And although there's progression, so you can still be where you want to be and progress. But I shaped for years, and I shaped with Johnny Palmer and myself. We were big buddies, and he knew much more than me, and he used to kind of help me. But in my own reference, I didn't feel I knew enough, So when I came to Jbay, I asked Darcy all sorts of things, and Kenny and Larry and the maid and everybody. I just wanted to know how to build a surfboard, So I was.
That must have been such a cool experience.
It was hard because I had one kid by then. I was 40, I think. I don't know, and or around 40, and I was enthusiastic but also desperate to get going. I really wanted to learn how to shape good surfboards, and I shaped boards, as I said before that, but I knew I had to learn. And then very fortunately, I had guys in Blue Hawaii that came from Hawaii. The one kid came, he was okay, but then when the guy that owned Blue Hawaii, who was a very good shaper, came, and he's a technical shaper, very good, he put me right on track. And then once I tooled up and once I followed him, I knew I'd be away, and so I was able to really measure what I was doing and know what I was doing. I think, sometimes we think things don't have measurements, but in the modern world today, you can measure anything.
Yeah.
So that means there's always been measurements. We've just had to discover them. And I think with surfboards, the more measurements you can have an idea of, not that you take every centimeter or eighth of an inch, but the more knowledge you have of dimensions, the more you can design,
Yeah.
So that's what I learned then, and it's just... and then the guys that I've worked with as well, that I've felt that really know what's going on, we've all had very much the same idea of how boards are done, and have had the same methodology, Yeah.
And all those guys, did they kind of come from the same group of shapers, or is it like you met this guy in Durban and he's actually shaped the same way as you have?
Yeah, no, it's strange because when Glenn Manami set me up to technically, Um, I realized when I went to Hawaii, Eric Arakawa did the same thing. Then Nev came to me. He did the same thing. Like a lot of the guys that I know that shape really good boards, they pretty much have worked along the same lines, and I think they've been fundamentals. They've been the basics. They've been the basic chords. Like when you play guitar, you've got different chords.
Do you think that level of like discipline's been lost in like modern shapers?
Yeah, well, I mean, what you're going to do is, now that we've learned to measure boards, and you've got a printout on a computer, so you get the design that the cutter's going to use, and they ask you, or they give you the idea. They say, measure this, measure that, measure this, measure that. In the beginning, we just looked at surfboards. I mean, what did you measure? So you got rail templates now. You got all sorts of stuff. So the incredible thing is we've had it progress. So if you think about it, like 100 odd years ago, people were practicing medicine without washing their hands. Wondering why people were dying.
Yeah.
And so that's how dumb we are. So if you don't know, you're not so smart, you won't let people teach you. But if you know, hey, if the guy says wash your hands and you're teachable, you say yeah, boss. So that's one of the things I learned trying to do surfboards, was when people told me do this, do that, I did it at least once, at least. And if I found it worked, I stayed with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what we need to be able to do. Do you know what I'm saying? We need to
be teachable.
Yeah. And so what I'm saying is, like with measurements, people say, "Yeah, I'm just going to make the board." Okay, well, just make the board, but then would you know what you made?
Yeah.
Would you know what you made? And I think that it's like when you do things over and over, you get used to it. So you look at people, you say, okay, you 80 Ks, you 64 Ks, and you're pretty close. That's 2 foot, that's 3 foot, but yeah, you're not gonna throw the tape measure away.
Yeah.
So learn to use it properly. Learn to use the measurements that are there, and that's become much more important today in the world that we're in, isn't it? I mean, now we measure things fantastically.
Yeah. Yeah, when I first started looking at shaping, I got Alistair Brown gave me a tip: just feel boards and measure everything. And that's what I've been trying to do. I've just got to keep my tape measure with me, and then if I see a board, feel the rails. What does it feel like? How thin's the nose? How thick's the tail? How wide? All that kind of stuff. And I've got a note list on my phone. I'm just writing things down. Don't know what most of it means yet, or how it affects boards. But it's been interesting to see and feel like, okay, I'm starting to feel like, okay, this is what 3 inches feels like in the middle versus like 2 and stuff like that. It's cool.
Yeah, well, when you shape, you also, you feel the rail, and you can measure the rail by putting your hands on the rail and hold and just get that shape. It clears the shape for you. You just pull your hand up, and you clasp it, and now we've got with the progression, instead of using your hand, now we've got rail templates that we've made off rails that we like.
Yeah.
So you can make, but having said that, this is why, particularly people that shape boards off the machine, a lot of the boards look the same. They really do. A lot of the boards are looking the same. It's a few different. So yeah, I don't know. I just think it's good and bad. I would think. I mean, my good friend in Hawaii's got a very sophisticated machine, but he hand shapes all the the originals, you know.
Okay.
And if he's making boards for different people, he might hand shape the board instead of just putting it on the machine,
Yeah.
drawing the board.
Yeah.
But if you think about how we've progressed as surfboard builders, there's some guys now that draw boards, like really good boards, you see. So, and I don't. I haven't gotten there. I didn't want to go there, so I didn't go there. But I sometimes wonder if I should have. So, on the one hand, it's almost a contradiction because I feel you should hand shape, but on the other hand, if you can draw it, well, I don't know, then draw it, you know.
So when you were like, when you started Sawyer and stuff, and I'm assuming your business obviously grew from like doing a few boards here and then to how do you keep up with the production? So you just hand shaped everything, start to finish.
When I was seriously in my groove making boards and had a demand, I was hand shaping all my boards. I made 25 to 30 boards a week, handmade
What?
shapes, yeah. And
That's a big
I had
number.
about 150 backlog of boards.
Wow.
And I don't know how many years I had that, but I just remember I could never make enough boards, and it was a bit of a frustration. So,
I can imagine.
you know, today now, if you have, like my friend and other guys in different countries now, you got all these glassing shops, you know. So Al Merrick makes thousands of boards a year because they just pump them on the machine, give them to the glasses, and those models go out.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different game.
Yeah.
It's a whole different game now. So yeah, I think the most boards I probably made in a year was, I don't know if it's 1,000, 1,200.
Wow.
I think, I don't know. You know, I honestly, I don't know. All I know is that I did as many as I could, and I remember 25. I used to order at least 25 blanks a week, 30 blanks a week.
Wow.
So I was making that many boards,
And
but that was hard, bro. That was hard.
Yeah, that's graft.
To keep it, yeah.
What was your like work day like?
My work day?
Yeah.
Blood, sweat, and tears. What do you mean? What was my work day like?
Like, what time did you start? What time did you finish?
I don't know. I'm not an early bird, so I'd probably start 8:30 and finish at 5.
Okay.
But I worked hard and I had very strict disciplines, and I also built my own profiler, which helped. So in the end, when I was copying boards, I made 2 a day for Glenn Manami. And once I'd done that and got all those things going, all those methods and, all that stuff, I was probably shaping 8 to 12 a day on my best days. But, you don't do that every day.
Yeah.
But, the guys are with me, Das, and I was still down the factory there. I was shaped probably my best day, 10 or 15 boards for the day.
That is a production line of a day.
Yeah, I've done more than that though.
Yeah. And when you're doing that many boards, were you servicing mainly just Jbay, or were you exporting
everywhere
boards?
In the whole world, man? It was ridiculous. Our boards are everywhere. I mean, I'm walking down a street in Hawaii in a place called Paia in Maui, and these guys are in front of me, and I walk past them, and the guy says, "Hey, Des," and I look around, and I don't know who he is, and he says, "I've got your boards from Jeffries,
Wow.
And apparently they were in the museum there. There's 1 or 2 of my boards, but and I've heard guys come back from India and say there was a board on the beach in India. So because of aeroplanes, though, it's only because of the aeroplane. It's not because I'm that great. I think it's just today. You can get anything anywhere. But I was getting orders, and I still get orders from a few different places. But I stopped exporting. Earlier on, I didn't always, build boards flat out, but I wanted to work in Hawaii, and I wanted to work in Japan. I wanted to export. I exported to a lot of different countries. Actually, I exported or sent boards with people in the 70s to Israel. Can you believe it?
Wow.
And Germany. and I think Spain, I don't know, whatever, I can't remember, but to a chocolate factory in Israel, in Ashkelon or something, I can't remember.
So you're saying that you're exporting a lot of boards and you slowed down and
Oh
stuff?
yeah, I worked all over the world and exported boards. So I slowed down and then made a change. Then my son started surfing, and I got back into surfing. Well, surfboard building, because I had a gap year program that I ran for a couple of years, from the year 2000.
Like a shaping program?
No,
What?
discipleship.
Wow.
Yeah, in a
Cool.
house. Lived with people in the house.
What is that called?
It was called Surf Masters, but it was really what I wanted to do was do life with people, and I think there was a big gap between going to church and getting preached to, and then living.
Yeah.
You see, and so that's why I did that, and did that for a while. And then our son,
Very cool.
when he was 9, Damien Hobgood said, "Are you surfing?" And he said, "No, I'm fishing and skateboarding and riding bicycle." He said, "Do you want to surf?" Because he was at our house. He's a friend. He became friends with us. And he said, "If you surf," it was his birthday as well. He said, "If I give you a board, will you surf?" And Stephen said, "Okay, but I'm not surfing white waters." So I took him to the point and he started surfing. So that whole thing started me building a few more boards, because I did a couple of boards, but I wasn't shaping every day and working. And then once we got out of that, I started building boards a little more seriously. Well, not serious. I mean, I've always been serious about it, but a little bit more frequently, And then with Stephen competing, we didn't want to do a whole lot of boards, because I had done that and I wasn't up to it. I'm not making 10 board, all that stuff, 10 boards a day and stuff.
Yeah.
And there weren't people to glass and stuff. So I taught Stephen to glass properly.
Cool.
And he glasses like properly. And I've taught him to shape properly, and he does a bit of shaping. And so now he's taking the business and he'll get ready to produce. So we'll get back into possibly, where we were before.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so we'll see, I might speak to people to see about Japan and stuff, because that to me was a highlight. Hawaii and Japan, just worked. That's how it worked for me,
Yeah. And what's it been like shaping boards for a town like Jbay? Because obviously you've got one of the best waves in the world. Such a it's not just like point, but
it's a
super.
specialized wave. Supers is deceptive. So in the old days, people thought they needed to ride longer boards, like guns and stuff. And I did a lot of those up to 7 foot, years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago. But now, I mean, Stephen rides 5.8s, 5.9s most of the time, and he surfs that on the biggest days. And he surfs the biggest waves in the most critical places, like in the barrel, whatever,
Yeah.
So, boards have changed, as I said. The designs have changed. I mean, we had some really good, in the 90s, I think the boards were going very, very well, very, very nicely. I think the 80s was a bit of a rough time for boards.
Really?
I think.
Like globally or just South Africa?
Well, it was all skulls and crossbones and nonsense, and everybody was trying to make $1 billion out of surfboard clothing, particularly, the surfboard boom and the clothing boom. And go to London and there's a surf shop in the middle of London, So they built an image out of surfing, where surfing was just surfing, But building surfboards in Jbay, I came to Jbay to build surfboards and to have just, as I say, a quiet sort of as modest life as possible, changing my mind as much as I could from being persuaded to live in a certain way, everything's got to shine and be all dialed in. But it was good because we had a lot of traveling surfers. We had the contests. We had guys that surfed well. I was able to see a lot of difference of the short boards. Not that I did, as I said, with the logs. We didn't have the logs, but we had the short boards, and had opportunity to build a lot of boards for a lot of good surfers, top surfers, pro surfers, etc.
That's quite cool.
Yeah.
It must. It's always like blown me away when I look at, because my experience of surfing is only in the past like 8 years, and I think in the past 8 years, I'm primarily a longboarder. There hasn't been like a massive jump in anything in 8 years, and then change guys like you've been around for so long, they've seen the progression of like everything, seen how surfing itself has changed and the boards that guys are surfing, how competitions are running, and all that kind of stuff. It must be quite a cool be able to look out with like a very top-down view of like the timeline of surfing.
Big privilege. So that's one of my greatest privileges that I have, is that, for argument's sake, the old boards, we surfed them. I started on them. And then what I discovered when I came to Jeffries, do you remember when they made the second Endless Summer movie?
Yeah.
John Whitmore came and he invited me to the beach, and then I realized, hang on, I grew up with these guys. So I didn't know Henson and Robert August, but I knew the other guys, James and the guy Terry that had the van and Whitmore and all these oaks. So the privilege that I had took me a long time to realize.
Yeah.
That although we started with no wetsuits, freezing, no leashes, going straight, the big deal was to not pull when you took off on the wave. We don't even have pull today. It doesn't exist. Pull. Surf bumps, you don't even have surf bumps. I had huge surf bumps on my feet and my knees.
I'm growing a few.
Yeah, so we don't have surf bumps anymore. And then they used to open up. Then when the wetsuits were invented, we had these rashes and you wear your armpit off. And get infections, and we cried. The first few waves you were dying because you had these big holes in your arms. But after catching a few waves, the pain went away. It was crazy. So the progressions, and what can I say?
That's very cool.
We were going to surf, freezing, swimming, much more than surfing. Who cares? We were going to surf. So I started with that, and the privilege that I had when I was able to look back, and then of course having a son, and Shana now. So looking back on all of that's a big privilege for me, Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's like history is so important, and hearing your story and stuff is very important.
History is parts of history are very important. I think, unfortunately, some people don't have a history, and there are a few oaks that have got a bit of history in the surfboard building here, like Mark Lamont and Spider. The other guys that are peripheral now, they've a lot of, like I haven't surfed for a couple of years because I've had a few problems with my hips and back and stuff. But I mean, the funny thing is, you think that you're not going to grow out of surfing, but you have to, because you get older. It's like it's demanding. So there's very few guys that I surfed with that still surf. Because that's how it goes. I mean, rugby players, by the time you're 40, you're done. No one's playing rugby after 40, at least 35, maybe.
Yeah. It was quite cool. I met a guy the other day surfing in PE. He looked like he'd got this like brand new log, so I started chatting to him about it. And I was asking him like how long he'd been surfing for. And he said he's been surfing for about 25 or 30 years, and he's only recently downgraded to a longboard. And I think he was in his 60s. And it was cool to see, even just, he was like, I still want to surf, so I'm going to buy a longboard. And that's not like, you can't get those massive waves or big cutbacks that he used to do, but he's surfing a longboard. And he was saying it's been quite a challenge for him, because now he's learning how to do like cross step and like get a hang five and turn a longboard, where he's came from like shortboards and stuff. So your body does catch up with you, but I think you can make it last a bit longer by getting a bigger board.
Yeah, you can. Look, surfing's changed a lot, you know.
Yeah.
Become a family surf orientation. The female surf, when I surfed in the beginning, there was probably only 2 girls that surf. I didn't even see the one the one I saw, and there was only one that I used to see surf, one girl. And then there was another one that surfed, but she surfed the other side of Cape Town. And I never saw her surf, I don't think ever. And then, you know, there was girls that surfed for the Springboks and stuff in the 60s, obviously, but there were very few surf families and stuff like today, you know. That was the surprise that I had when I went to Hawaii the first time, because families were surfing and there was a totally different orientation. Like South Africa was weird because, you know, there was still this unprogressive stigma attached to surfers that they were all goofballs and they were all useless, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, and that wasn't the case in Hawaii, that's for sure. But it's changed, which is cool, you know? Now there's things called surf schools. I mean, we never thought of a surf school.
Yeah.
You know?
And what's it, maybe like one of the last few questions, like being in Jbay for so long, obviously it's an incredible surf town. How has Jbay's surfing culture or industry changed?
Well, it's changed only because of the business. So, you know, years ago with Billabong being the main deal, people used to surf. They work at Billabong. When they surfed, you know. I don't know, you know, the point of view is too prejudiced to start saying too much about it. But I'll just say that we thought it would be more crowded by now. So I'm glad it's not.
More crowded by now?
Yeah, I thought it would be more crowded because the 80s were crowded and the 90s it had times of crowds. With the surf reports, a lot of crowds come to surf because now they know. You know, in the old days you had to read the weather. Now you just check your computer. I mean, it's a bit lame.
Got live broadcasts.
So some idiot, he knows when there's going to be surf. You know, like before you needed to know what was going on.
Yeah.
But now you don't. So it's like it's a bit of a pain.
I met a guy. I was in a coffee shop in PE, and I saw this dude, and he was American. So I went and said hi to him, asking why he's here and stuff. And he was from Paraguay, I think that's where he was living. And I was like, well, why are you here? And he's like, well, I'm going to Jbay. And I was like, why? It's like, I saw the forecast 2 days ago, so I bought a plane ticket. I'm here to surf.
You see, that's what happens. So the value of having to learn to surf, having to learn to build boards, having to learn to read the weather, having to learn your place in the lineup, you know what I mean? We had respect for the oldies.
Yeah.
Like where I surfed, you couldn't sit in the lineup as a kid. You sat on the side in the channel, and when the older guys called you in, you came and you got your wave. And if you missed it, they might give you another one. Now I got a 12-year-old talking to me about all my wife's body parts. I mean, what nonsense is that?
Yeah, it's pretty
wild.
You
see, so I'll just clap that oak, you know, to teach him some manners. So the hierarchy in surfing is fading a bit. I think the one good thing about surfing in Jeffreys is there's still that stigma attached to Jeffreys that when you come to Jbay, you must behave yourself.
Yeah.
And I hope that stays. I know that Stephen and his friends are trying to keep that going.
Yeah.
They you know, you can do it. I mean, I used to do it. I used to say to the guy, hey, listen, you're getting too advantageous here. You must move down the line here. You know, this is not your spot. So we sit here. You can sit there. You don't have the privilege.
Yeah.
You see, but then again, and I'll preach it because it's true. When you're in a local surf break, you don't have a right. If you think you've got a right, that's when you're going to get a clap.
Yeah.
So the locals will have to put you in you've got a privilege. Either the privilege to watch or the privilege to surf. Not just to come and take any wave.
Yeah.
So today, with our Western idea, we've got rights. It's a completely wrong idea. You don't have any rights in this whole world.
Yeah.
I don't believe in rights. I don't believe in rights. I don't believe I've got one right. I've got a privilege. That's given to me.
Yeah.
That means if you come to Jeffreys, you've got the privilege of surfing Jeffreys, not the right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so people don't know their boundaries, People don't, and this is the funny thing is the, it's called culture now, but it's just dishonorable living. It's just a lack of grooming. It's a lack of awareness. It's a lack of kop, having no kop, Afrikaans word, lekker. Because the Oaks think that, they think just because they drove all the way from Cape Town now, they forget that the Oaks stay here all year waiting for the waves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? While they're cruising around with all the wave choices, we're waiting for supers to happen. Now that it happens, that is going to pedal on my inside all the time. So I think that you don't have to be violent about it, but you have to be emphatic.
Yeah.
And say, hey, buddy, you're out of place here.
Yeah. I'm way too scared to surf supers just because I'm like, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I'm like a no one. Like, I'm just too scared.
There's a lot of surf breaks in the world that people don't have the privilege to surf.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. Because why should you just have every privilege that exists? You know what I'm saying? You don't have every privilege. No one's that privileged.
Yeah.
None of us are that privileged that we can go anywhere and do anything that we like. Just because you've got a will doesn't mean to say that you can do what you want. And so I think those things in surfing, I hope that the value of those things stays in surfing.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a while to work it out. Like even for Kelly Slater, who comes to Jeffreys, I don't think he just paddles into any wave he wants. He's sensitive as to who's in the water, because the O's will kick him out the water.
Yeah.
And it's the same in Hawaii. It doesn't matter who you are, bro. And it's not that we disrespect anybody, but there's a mutual connection here. If that doesn't work, then it's like a guy. He can't park in my driveway. It's not his right to just park in my driveway. It's the same as surfing here. You just don't park in the lineup where you want.
Yeah.
Without understanding that's a place you can go. That's it, bro. That's it. That's what gives you the value of this place.
It's been like, I'm new gen, I'm young, like I've got no say in industry at all, like in the break and that kind of stuff, and it's been cool. There's some guys in PE who have like been talking to a bit more about like staying in your place, like don't, just because you might surf better than this guy doesn't mean you can just take his place, it's been here longer. And it's like a bit of a passing down of traditions kind of thing. Another day I did my surf grom for the first time. He was like just dropping in on everyone, like dropping in on the guys who've been surfing there for like 20 years or whatever. And I was like, hey, you need to go sit down there.
So I think that people have lost their way, and they've done it more and more and more, and that's why we have the world that we're living in today. Because when you lose your way, like I said earlier, people think they're sober-minded, but they're so drunk on jealousy.
Yeah.
Hey? That although he wants to be honest, he'll lie through his neck to beat you, to get what you've got. And people don't realize that. So they think, oh, you're only unsober when you're drunk or goofed or something. It's nonsense. So I think, and the thing about being drunk, not that I think it's great at all, but at least in the next morning you'll wake up sober. When you're drunk on hate, you'll wake up the next morning still drunk on hate, bro.
That's true.
Yeah. So why am I mentioning that is because that's what makes a surfer. He must be aware of these things. And that's why I did what I did with having people live with us, because I wanted surfers to be surfers. And when I think of what a surfer is, he doesn't need Greenpeace to tell him what to do. He doesn't need eco challenges to tell him what to do. Yeah. He knows, hey, this is how it should be. I don't need to lie to anybody. I don't need to expand things. I don't need to do this. I don't have to have rights. I've got privilege. He knows his place in the lineup. He knows his place in life.
Yeah.
That's what a surfer, that's what I was that's why I became a surfer, because when I saw surfers as a kid, and the guys I surfed with, the older guys, a lot of those guys had good values. They did. And a lot of those guys, although there was all that drug thing happening in the 60s and 70s and the hippie vibe, people were trying to discover reality. So in a sense, I could waver a lot of the things. So what if they smoked a bit of dope? At least they progressed past dope.
Yeah.
You never even got to dope.
Yeah.
Don't get clever now. You never even thought of more than what some dude told you.
Yeah.
So, and why do I say that? Is because that's what surfers are to me, you know. And I don't say that we're above anybody else. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying we should be whole people, because we're in touch with a lot of different things. We're in touch with a big business arena, high performance arena, beautiful nature. The ocean doesn't know your name. It doesn't matter whether you slate it, it'll break your leg here, bro. So, and that's lovely because it keeps you in your spot, the surf.
Yeah.
And then you should stay in your spot forever. You should stay, you get your groove. You understand?
Yeah.
For me, I think it's a beautiful leveler, bro. I've often wished some people I've met would surf because they're so lofty.
Yeah.
They're so big time. And then the other thing about surfers is, you know, they come and order a board, and then the guy says something dumb like, "I don't want to do airs." I mean, he won't even do a cutback this you know.
Yeah.
Why does he talk like that? You know, he's still going to learn, hopefully.
Yeah.
That he's a kook, and I think we should, you know, that whole idea of having kooks is great.
Yeah.
You know, because if you are a kook, the best thing you can do is know you're a kook. That's for sure. But in the world today,
Everyone's too cool to be a kook.
you're 12 years old, you surf for EP, now you're pro. You know, you've got a Billabong t-shirt, they interview you on TV. What do you think of the surfer? Oh, he's 10 years old.
Yeah.
He doesn't know even how to think.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what's happening. Got to get, I don't know, I resist that whole idea. So, yeah, that's what I talk about when I talk to surfers, build boards for people. I like to, interested in the person. They're much more important than the board.
Totally.
And I'm building the board for him.
Yeah.
There's my friend, I think.
Well, Des, thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's see. Show me what you've done.
I will. Thanks for listening to this conversation with Des Sawyer. Had a really great time meeting him and getting to hear his story. If there's another shape you want to hear about, let me know. Till the next one, you can follow this show on Instagram at Taking Shape Podcast to see updates on the next show. I hope you enjoyed this interview, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.